Hello, welcome to Open Oven. My name is Mike Smith. We have a recipe and a meal for you tonight. This is one of my favorite things to cook and certainly one of my favorite things to eat. Maybe the shells tipped it off for you. But today we're going to make steak fajitas, and to top it off, we're going to make homemade salsa. Really easy meal to make. Fantastic meal. You can use meat, you could use shrimp if you wanted to, whatever type of fajita you want to make. Like I said, tonight we're going to make steak fajitas, and so we're going to go over that. But before we get there, we're going to make some salsa. And again, this is literally the easiest salsa to make. Let me just move that out of the way for a second so we can see it here. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. Let's use this. I'm going to bring Roma tomatoes. Key, Roma tomatoes, and avoid the soft ones. You want hard ones. We're going to make salsa. Remember, when you're looking at salsa, I'm going to cut the tops off, go from there. Do you like that sound? All right. When you're making salsa, obviously, if you think about the salsa that you've had at restaurants, whether it's Mexican restaurants or steak restaurants or whatever, you don't want to puree it. You don't need to have it look like tomato juice or tomato sauce. Just small pieces. You want to save all that juice. We probably got plenty of tomatoes here. You want to cut them thin, obviously, because then we're going to end up cutting these some more to start with. And like I said, I would normally go ahead and just keep cutting, and we'll make a whole bowl full of salsa. But we're going to start with this, I would say like that. And you're going to start to cut this in very small pieces. I'm going to cut it lengthwise. Try to get it pretty thin. That's it. Just like that. I mean, that's all it needs to look like. That kind of looks like what you would expect in salsa. We're going to end up adding a whole bunch of ingredients yet, but let's get this tomato done up. I'm using a pretty sharp knife. Obviously makes your cutting a lot better if your knife is nice and sharp. All right. Again, I recommend Roma tomatoes. In theory, you could use whatever type of tomatoes, but you're looking for something with some firmness. If they're soft, it's just going to be, when I'm even putting it into the bowl, it's just going to be a mess. It's going to be liquid everywhere. It's just going to be really soft. These are nice, firm Roma tomatoes. We happen to be, in season, so we can get nice kind of more even local tomatoes if you can. All right, going to start with that. We're going to set it aside. I'm going to use pepper in my stir fry, but we're going to cut some up so that we can add some really fine chopped pepper into our salsa. You need it small because you don't want it to be chunky. Again, nice sharp, nice knife helps. So I will do it just like I did with the tomatoes. Try to get the pretty small sizes. And if you don't like it, you can always do it the old-fashioned way. All right, we'll get some of that in there. We're going to add some onion, just a small amount. We're going to end up using this pepper and the onion in the stir fry, but we want to get a little bit of really thinly sliced onion in that salsa. I usually slice it and then take the skin off after. Move that aside. And same thing, move that out of the way. It's a little easier for the camera to see. And we're gonna cut that pretty small. Add that to, I don't put a lot of onion in, I don't want it to be overbearing. Onion can obviously, really dominate your flavors. So I'll put that in there. This is a pretty, I guess you would say red looking salsa. If you wanted to add some green pepper, you could do that and you get a little bit more color in there. All right, we're gonna add some spices. I'm gonna use a little bit of cumin and a little bit of chili powder. You can use cayenne pepper if you want, but again, depending on how spicy you want things. Add that in there. Add a little bit of salt. And a little bit of pepper. Mix that up a little bit. All right. And last but not least, I'm going to put some garlic in there. And I'm going to really finely chop this garlic. If you don't want to do it that way and you want to be sure, you can go ahead and grate it in there, and that way it's really small. So I'm going to grate a little bit of garlic in there. You'll find that if I'm using the one that's too small, it won't even fall in. So we're going to work that, pull that garlic down, and put it inside that salsa. All right. So when we get back from the break, we'll start working on our steak fajitas. What I would do is put this in the fridge and come back to it a little bit later. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. And so I've taken that salsa, put it in the fridge. We're gonna let that, if you have time, you would do the salsa ahead, and then you would put it in the fridge even overnight. Obviously, the garlic and some of those flavors will be a little bit better once it's refrigerated. So again, we're using steak. We're using a fairly thin cut here. Nice part about steak fajitas is you don't have to use a really expensive cut. If you want to, sure, fine, but you can use really any cut because you're going to be, cutting this in strips, so it's easily going to cook. I'm just going to get the pan heated up. Whoops. And again, we're using our ceramic plate. So again, if you don't have access to a stovetop and you have one of these work fantastic and they heat up very, very quickly. So again, we have a thin cut of steak, and which is perfect because obviously then it cooks that much faster. Again, talking about how to cut this. So you don't want to cut across the fat. We want to get that fat out of there. We don't really want to include it in our when we go to stir fry. So you're going to cut it with you're going to cut the steak. I'm going to use the fork just to hold, but you're going to cut with the grain or with the whatever direction the fat is going. And then, in fact, usually what I'll do is I'll cut that little bit of fat off there. Because if you're eating a fajita, the last thing you want to do is chew for 30 seconds on one little tiny piece of meat. So, again, we want to, you can see there's just a layer of fat in there. So I'm going to cut it right along the fat, and then I can get most of the fat out of there. And we want to cook the meat. cut that fat out of there. All right. And we're making ground. So there's a nice piece of meat there. We're going to get that into a nice strip, nice thin strip. Doesn't matter how long it is. Cut that in half. Whoops. We got a nice tender piece of meat. All right. I've got my pan heating up. We're going to use oil, obviously. We're going to actually stir fry the meat first because you want to brown that meat first. You don't have to overcook this meat either. It's so thin and so tender. If you overcook it, it's just really going to make your steak tough. Just kind of trying to keep the consistency of the strips. That's probably a little hot. As soon as you start to see those bubbles, as soon as it really moves easily across the pan, it's definitely hot enough. And like I said, we're going to put the meat in first. We're going to spice that meat a little bit. And again, you can use whatever you like to use for spicing. I just normally use black pepper and salt. Sometimes I'll use like a Montreal steak spice, something like that in it. You are using beef, so any type of spice that whatever your favorite spice is at home. Get this last nice piece off here. Feels like I'm almost gutting a fish. I'm just trying to get rid of some of that fat. All right. All right, so we're ready to go. And I'm simply going to take that steak and put it in here, and we're going to brown it, remember. I'm going to use little tongs, obviously plastic ended, or rubber ended, some nylon, something like that. We're using a non-stick pan, a very good pan. The last thing you want to do is use, the famous old metal grabbers. You want to use something that you're not going to scratch the bottom of that pan. So you can hear as soon as I put it in, it'll start to sizzle. It's pretty hot. I'm going to put all that in there. We're going to brown it first. With the constantly, this should take a minute or two max. All you're doing is browning. You can see it's so thin, it browns fast. I'll take some pepper. I'm going to add pepper to that right now. Like a pepper steak. Whoops. Keep browning that for a minute or two. Almost done already, at least for what we need. We're going to finish that right after the break, but I'm just going to put that right here. And after the break, we'll carry on with the vegetables. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. I've cleaned up our knife. We're going to do our vegetables now. I'm just going to get the pan a little bit hot, add a tiny bit more oil. Again, using a sunflower oil or some type of vegetable oil or canola oil, something obviously other than animal fat. We don't need that. We've got animal fat. We've got meat right there. So we're going to take our pepper. You can use, again, if you want to make it really, really colorful, you can use multiple colored peppers. And in this case, we want to cut them again thin, but the whole size, the whole length. Looks pretty cool when you're all done and you're adding them to your fajita. They're kind of the perfect size when they're full. Cut those thin enough because you're going to definitely quick fry those. We're stir frying them, so they don't have to be, again, they don't have to be cooked. They just need to be warmed and hot, and then they're nice and a little bit of crispness, but not too much. Now throw that in. You hear that sizzling? And then we'll get some onion in there, same thing. I can put little bigger pieces here now. Give that a stir. Like I said, there's some oil in there. Sometimes when I make this, I'll use soy sauce. I'll put a little bit of soy sauce in there. That'll brown up everything, make the onions turn dark brown. Remember, onions, the longer you leave them in there, the sweeter they get. So you leave them in here, let them get browned up a bit. Keep that quite hot so that it softens up the peppers and fries up your onions. We're going to add a little bit of mushrooms. I've got 3 washed mushrooms. Sometimes I put mushrooms in, sometimes I don't, really up to you. You don't see this too often anymore, but for a long time I used to finish this off with bean sprouts. Bean sprouts you actually put in the very end. So what we're going to do is we're going to cook this, or saute, or stir fry in the case of not using butter. We're going to stir fry this, get it nice and hot, soften that stuff up. Then we're going to add the meat back in to finish it off. Again, if you wanted to add soy sauce, you could. About a minute before you're ready and done, you throw in your bean sprouts if you're using bean sprouts. So let's get an idea. I want to make that nice and hot, really hot. You know, when you go to some restaurants and they've got that sizzling, they bring out that sizzling plate. That's kind of what you're looking for here. You want it to be really, really hot. And it's sizzling up there good. It smells fantastic. And you see the onions will start to brown, which is absolutely perfect. Caramelize a little bit, which makes them sweeter. So just let that go. I'm going to add again just a tiny bit of salt, some pepper, frying nicely, get that stir fry in there. It just smells really fantastic. Again, very simple meal. Again, you don't have to use beef. You want a chicken stir fry, a beef stir fry, shrimp stir fry, whatever you like. And you can tell by the smoke coming up that you've got a nice sizzle going there. All right, I'm going to add that steak in. Keep it at the highest temperature. I won't put all that extra fat and juice in there. We've got lots of liquid left in the meat. And we're going to sizzle that together. Just let that kind of cook away a bit. Remember our salsa that we made earlier? So I refrigerated this again. Ideally, if you could leave it overnight, you're going to get a lot more absorbed smells. So we're going to keep that handy. We've got our cheese and our sour cream and our homemade salsa with our fajita shells. So I'm just going to let this get close to here. We're almost ready to go. Like I said, sizzle it. When those onions are browning and getting soft, you know you're ready to go. Let's take a quick peek at that. All right. So I could throw this on a pan and warm it up if I wanted to. These are haven't been frozen, haven't been in the refrigerator, so they're pretty much ready to go. So we're going to try one out here. I like to keep it in the middle there. Turn this off. We've got plenty of heat in there. All right. Get a good look at that. I'm going to take my homemade salsa. I'm going to put some of that on there. Take some of my cheese, put that on there, and then finish it off with my sour cream. Lots of versions of sour cream you can use too. Many, many, many. They all taste pretty much the same. So that is our steak fajita. Lots extra. I didn't even really use that much pepper and onion. You could obviously make a lot more. And there you have it. And it's ready to go. Very easy recipe, steak fajitas. Looks wonderful. Tastes just as good. Steak fajita.